You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Sarah Gulseth. Andy is taking a few days off this week. And so I thought, it'd be really fun if we had a little Lutheran Ladies Lounge takeover of The Coffee Hour. So today is a very special edition of The Coffee Hour because we have the whole Lutheran Ladies Lounge gang in studio. And this is going to be a really great episode. So guys, don't turn off the radio or skip this podcast. We hope you'll get something out of this too. Hopefully you have some women in your lives that would benefit from, hearing from this, hearing from the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast, our Facebook group. So hopefully you'll stick around too. Thanks to our underwriter, Concordia University, Wisconsin, for your support of the Coffee Hour. You can find out more about them at cuw.edu. Live Uncommon. So in studio are my dear friends from the Lutheran Ladies Lounge. And why don't we go around and introduce ourselves, because maybe the Coffee Hour audience doesn't really know us, at least as the Lutheran Ladies Lounge. Rachel, take it away.
I'm Rachel Bomberger. I was formerly managing editor of the Lutheran Witness, and in that role got to hang out with Andy and Sarah on this program a few times.
Yes, you did.
Every time was fun. I am currently a Navy chaplain's wife and a homeschool mom living in Virginia. So usually I phone in, but today I'm in studio because everything's right with the world right now.
I know. We're all together, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It's so exciting to have you in studio.
So glad.
All right, Bri, you're up.
I'm Bri Gerzevske. I am the Assistant Executive Director for LCMS Mission Advancement. That means I get to connect our generous pool of LCMS contributors to ministries and projects that they care about, including our very own lovely church body. I am a #SEM wife.
Yeah.
My husband is in the process of wrapping up his first year, so we're very excited about that. And we have one child with 4 legs, half black, half white, 65 pounds of pure, muscly dog. His name is 2%. And I love him.
And there are a lot of stories that go along with 2%.
So many stories.
But those aren't for this episode of The Coffee Hour. Erin, you're up.
I'm Erin Alter, and I am the director of the LCMS International Mission Short-Term Mission Program. And we send out missionaries, we send out volunteers, really, to join our missionaries serving all over the world, including our Mercy Medical Team program and English Bible camps in Poland, and lots of different types of opportunities. This week is actually kind of odd because we're trying to figure out the best way to operate during the coronavirus outbreak, and that's having a lot of impact, and we're trying to navigate the best way forward for the volunteers that we would be sending, but also for the fields that would be receiving them, and what's best from a lot of different perspectives. And so we're working through a lot of those challenges right now, but we're doing our best and trying to get good information from places that have a lot of insight for that.
Yeah. You get to work with a lot of people globally, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah. And maybe our listeners know me, but I'm going to introduce myself anyway. I'm actually the digital media specialist for KFUO. That's my real title, which means I get to play on social media and our website and do all of our graphic design. If you're not following KFUO yet on social media, you should totally follow us, kfuo.org. KFUO.org. What am I saying? Facebook.com/KFUO radio. I know how to do my job. Or Instagram or Twitter. If you look for @KFUO radio, you can find us. So we're here to talk about the Lutheran Ladies Lounge, why we even began this crazy endeavor to bring together what has turned into thousands of Lutheran women in one place. Rachel, can you tell us like the origin story of that one day when we met over coffee?
Yeah, I think so. It's been a while now,
I know.
but I think I sent you an email that said something along the lines of, I have an idea. It's kind of crazy. Could we go get coffee together and talk about it? Because, I love KFUO and I love listening to KFUO, but I kept thinking, maybe there's something more that could be done for women. Specifically because, of course, women make up a huge chunk of our church community. So the idea for a program that was basically a celebration of fellowship for women that really got on, really took this idea of life together and put it in a podcast form. So I sat down and I pulled out a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, Calibri font, because that's how I do. and I said, "What do you think?" And Sarah didn't think I was crazy, so
I did not. This is true. I think my words were, yes, we need to do this.
Yeah.
And it's been wonderful. KFUO Radio has been so supportive of this project from the beginning, and I'm really super glad that Bri and Erin both agreed, because let's face it, you guys add something super special to this. If it were just me and Sarah talking into a microphone,
It wouldn't be nearly as fun.
Well, and let's be honest, if you were going to rope two other people into your crazy, like, we're the two, like, this was a very appropriate decision.
So
It's true.
we launched the Facebook group in August. You
I
did
believe.
that.
Yep. That was a crazy night.
Yeah. Well, and we realized immediately how much this sort of this project spoke to people, because people started signing on to our Facebook group. A month before our first podcast episode dropped, people got it. And so that community has turned into a really vibrant part of all of our lives now. But then the podcast dropped a month later, and it has been so much fun.
It is.
That we record a couple times a month and air episodes once a week. And it's just a celebration of Lutheran community and culture, infused throughout with the love of Christ in our lives. So thank you, Sarah, for coffee. I can't even remember. I think we went Dutch that day. I don't think you even paid or I paid, but we had a good time and it turned out really well.
You didn't pay for the coffee?
They didn't steal it.
Okay, that's what I...
Oh, no, we paid
That's
for the
not
coffee.
what going Dutch means.
She's... Never mind. Sound test. Sorry.
Anyway, Erin and Bri, what have been your reactions or your thoughts as we're actually launching episode 26 this Friday. So we are just about halfway through our first year of podcasts, our first year of having this Facebook group and gathering all these women together. What are your reactions and responses and thoughts just to this whole experience and to the to all the women that we've gathered together or that have gathered together around this crazy idea that Rachel had?
Well, I was not really a podcast listener going into it. So I've had some, I don't know, hesitations or just uncertainty exactly what it meant to do a podcast when it sounded cool when I read the little proposal that you guys had come up with, but didn't really have a clear idea. It has been a lot of fun, though, and I feel like as we've continued forward, we've really hit our stride with how we actually interact and tackle different topics and work our way through that. It's been fun to learn all sorts of crazy trivia about herring barrels and
Steve's on.
Yes, all sorts of odd trivia that I would never have known about. But it's also been a lot of fun to see the ladies who are in the Facebook group and to see what a broad, even though we do have, without a doubt, we have a lot in common. There is much more that makes us similar than that makes us different. But it is still fun to see the lots of different ways. That's my thing that I always say. The Lutheran looks a lot of different ways. And so it's fun to be able to see that and engage in that and to grow in what I think of as what Lutheran is as I engage with these different ladies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that we try to drive home in, maybe not in spite of, but because of the fact that all 5,000 plus of us, we all Lutheran differently.
Mm-hmm.
I resonate very much with that. We all have a story. We all have experiences. We all have memories that sort of shape who we are as Lutherans. At the end of the day, we are all saved by grace through faith. We all stand to believe that. But it's very interesting to also look at those differences, but then when it really matters, sort of practicing this extra measure of empathy. I think that's something that we are really intentional about serving to our population, to our listenership, to say, okay, well, you do things a little bit differently, but what ties us together, and how do we sort of reconcile those sorts of things and sort of remember our Lutheranness despite all of our differences.
Sure. Yeah. I think one of the things that I've found really enjoyable in the Facebook group is the community that's building organically within the group among the women that are there. A lot of these women don't know each other. We may know a lot of them just because of our circles of influence, but a lot of these women don't know each other. And yet on these posts, when people share pictures of their churches or their recipe books or ask questions, there's all this community that is then organically built within that group of women, even though we live, across the country from each other. It really is this life together, what was an experiment back in August. This wonderful life together that we're able to walk alongside each other, even if we're not there physically with each other. We're able to support our sisters in Christ, which has been a really powerful thing, I'm guessing, for all of us and hopefully for a lot of other people in the group. We have to take our break. This is weird being on a clock for us. We're used to podcasting where we can just kind of talk as long as we want. So we have to take a break. We will be right back. You're listening to the Coffee Hour.
You're a miracle. You know that, right? A living, breathing, one-of-a-kind miracle. You were created to stand apart, to share your gifts in the service of others, to make an uncommon impact in a common world. And at Concordia University, it's our mission to help you do that, to live uncommon. To learn more about Concordia, go to cuw.edu.
Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
I'm Bri.
And I'm Rachel.
And no, you're not listening to the wrong program. This really is the Coffee Hour. But since Andy is out this week, I decided it would be fun to have a little Lutheran Ladies Lounge takeover of the Coffee Hour. Talk about our podcast, our group, the value of bringing Lutheran women together in a space to share some community and support each other. And we will get to that question in a little bit, hopefully, before we run out of time, because we are not used to running on a clock. We are used to podcasts, and we can talk as long as we want. But before we went to break, we were talking about our reflections, the benefits that we've seen in the Facebook group and all of this community together. But then, Rachel, you mentioned during the break that we haven't talked about the name. Why did we call ourselves the Lutheran Ladies Lounge?
Whenever someone asks me that question, I'm almost embarrassed to say the answer, which is, if you've done a lot of visiting around to Lutheran churches,
Especially old ones.
we all have, and if college choir tours are a great time to do this. You get to see the inside of a lot of Lutheran church ladies' restrooms.
If you're a lady.
If you're a lady, and for the gentlemen, this is a great mystery.
Yes.
But in so many of our churches, you walk in and it's not a row of stalls. It's a gracious parlor space where women can take their babies, where they can have rest if they have a headache, or, teenage girls can go gossip, whatever. It's this welcoming, hospitable space in the church, but tucked away from the hubbub of things. A women's only space where ladies can go and just rest and talk. And I loved this as a metaphor for our program so much that I suggested it as the name. And it's a funny thing, as soon as the name got out there, without so much as saying, oh, you have a program named after a bathroom, people got it, because any woman who has been in one of these knows immediately, oh, that's a ladies' lounge. And so having the Lutheran Ladies Lounge be our sort of framing metaphor for the program has worked really, really well.
Yeah.
So thanks for going with that, friends.
Of course.
It's this magical place that everyone gets together and talks. And the imagery for the podcast actually was inspired by the Ladies Lounge in my childhood church. And what's really funny is that when my teachers and some of the members of that church saw the artwork, they immediately recognized it as a Ladies Lounge at my childhood church. So mission accomplished.
It's a dying
on that
thing,
one.
though.
It is.
Churches, as they renovate, the Ladies Lounge is going away, I think.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we're keeping it alive.
Bring them back,
online.
people, because
Bring back the Ladies Lounge.
they are worth
Yeah.
having.
Yeah.
So on this podcast that we have, let's talk about the content, since that's what people are actually going to listen to.
Hopefully.
What are some of the, hopefully, right? What are some of the segments, the content, the topics that we talk about?
So Erin, I don't all know my voice yet. My topics are recipe card. So I make something and then we all eat it and offer commentary.
This is perhaps my favorite segment.
Yep. So far, they've all been delicious. I expect to, at some point in the near future, do something maybe a little more challenging, perhaps a really interesting Jell-O salad.
Whoa.
I don't know.
I mean,
We'll
that's very
see.
Lutheran.
It is
so-
very Lutheran. And then the other one that I do with regularity is a one-question interview, which the question is basically, what aren't we talking about that we should be? And then we take it away.
And it's different depending on the content or the content expert.
Yes.
So it's always something, it's
exactly.
always a person that is an expert in some
Exactly.
field or topic, and we want to dig into what they know.
Mm-hmm.
Those are always really fascinating too.
Yeah.
I like those. And we get to bring in more women into the Ladies Lounge, which is
That is exactly what they do
super
as well.
fun.
You're right.
yeah. Bri, what do you get to talk
What
about?
do I get? What don't I get to talk about?
What
Is
do
the
we let
better
you talk
question.
about?
Also that. I like to do, so I have Bri's How to Lutheran, which is sort of an editorial view of different Lutheran traditions, different Lutheran practices, not necessarily theological practices, but sort of what does it mean, what does this mean to be a Lutheran in a secular society. I also touch on things like, just different Lutheran quirks like felt confirmation banners,
Yes.
Advent midweek soup suppers, things that are sort of interwoven between all of the Lutheran churches that I know and that my friends have been to. Now, as we spoke earlier, we don't all Lutheran the same. And so this has actually been a very eye-opening experience for me in knowing that sort of my traditional Midwest LCMS Lutheran experience is not often like any other Lutheran experience necessarily. Everybody has sort of a different experience. So that's been very eye-opening.
Yeah.
This is Rachel, and I'm in charge of my two favorite segments. No offense. No, Erin's food is my favorite, but
Yes.
second and third would be the segments that I have a lot of fun with. I lead the book club.
Yes.
We don't necessarily always read Lutheran books, but we read books through Lutheran eyes, and that's a lot of fun. Literacy, of course, is really close to my heart. And I also, once every couple of months, we do Rachel's Trivia Challenge, in which I drag these hapless ladies
I love the trivia
through
challenge.
a series of stumpers on topics ranging from women of the Reformation to Mardi Gras. We've done Christmas pageants.
Oh, that was
Punch
fun. Punch keys. I have to say, the Mardi Gras quiz is probably my favorite one. That one was so fun. Like, I went back and listened to it multiple times because it was so fun.
It was
Yeah.
fun.
So those are my areas. Sarah, what do you do?
Well, Rachel, I also have two of my favorite topics to talk about, and all of you have to listen to me. And sorry, not sorry. One of them is Hymn Sings with Sarah. So I get to be super #hymn nerd and talk about the hymns that we get to sing, dig into the history, the tunes, the people behind them, how they relate to the season of the church year that we're in. Really fun stuff. And my other one is Story Time with Sarah. So I get to research a famous Lutheran woman or a woman that had some sort of impact on Lutheran history and tell her story. And those have been really fun. It has
Yes.
taken a lot of research, and I've gone down a lot of Google rabbit holes researching both of those segments.
But you
So,
have no regrets.
no regrets. Those are so fun. So all of those, we kind of mix and mingle all of those content episodes into our podcast so that you get a nice mix of things throughout our last 26 episodes. So before we run out of time, I want to touch on why this is important. And we talked about why we started it, but what is the value of gathering together women in our own space to share in these ideas, to talk about these things, and to support each other as sisters in Christ? What is the value in that? And maybe if you have someone in your own life that has been an important woman for you to follow after in your faith, let's talk about those things.
Well, this is March. This is International Women's History Month.
It's
and
true.
So, these ideas are on my brain because, our church holds to the biblical teaching about men and women in leadership in the church. You aren't going to see Lutheran women in the history books quite as often as you're going to see Lutheran men. But I don't see that as a tragedy because you don't need to be in a history book to make history.
Mm-hmm.
Our church is built on women's contributions, the quiet things, the potlucks in the church basements, the quilting bees, and this sounds all quaint and romantic and nostalgic, but the truth is women have been building the church from the beginning with acts of service and love that are unsung far more often than they are sung. I think about my own grandmother and great-grandmother and the way they cared for their family, the way they served selflessly in their congregations. And they are the history of the church in a way that we don't talk about quite enough, in my opinion. So we do that on the podcast. But I'll throw to Bri and Erin now. What about you guys?
So I had the privilege of speaking with one of the women that is at the church where my husband does his field work. Her name is Shirley. And
Hi, Shirley.
she intimated to me last week that she's been at Timothy Lutheran Church for 50 years coming
Wow.
up. And it's obvious that she has breathed life into that congregation, that she's a congregational backbone, so to speak, and the congregation then has sort of breathed life into her. So to sort of see through the eyes of somebody who's been there for so long and how she continues to just love and be a constant support for the pastors, their families, the field workers, their families, it's something to see, and I don't think it hardly gets enough accolades to think of the women of the church like that.
Absolutely. Erin?
And if you listen to any of my podcast segments, you all will know that the Lutheran woman, aside from my mom, who has the most impact on me, would be my Grammy. Audrey Lidke.
I love you, Grammy.
Probably listening at some point to this because her daughters will help her find it. So Grammy is the Lutheran lady that has had a huge impact on my life.
Yeah. And in the last 30 seconds, I will say I have two because I couldn't choose because I think they're actually both in the lounge group. So I would hear it from one of them if I did. But Mrs. Martin and Mrs. Ankerberg, two of my grade school teachers, they had a huge impact on me as a student, as a Lutheran, as a chorister in grade school, as a reader. I still remember Mrs. Ankerberg told me that, the first sentence of a book should grab you, and if it doesn't, it might not be worth reading. And I still use that knowledge today when I'm listening to my audiobooks. If I'm not hooked by that first sentence, I'm probably not going to. And it's worked. Yeah. So all of just having to put a bow on this, since we actually need to wrap this up. Putting a bow on this, there is great value in having Lutheran women together and sharing each other's burdens, walking alongside each other. What was it? Weep with those who weep, rejoice with those who rejoice. And we do that, hopefully, mostly successfully in the podcast and in the group. So if you are interested, you can find all of our podcasts, kfuo.org/Lutheran Ladies Lounge. We'll put links in the show notes too, of course. Ladies, it has been super fun having a takeover of the coffee hour with you all. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@KFUO.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.